Well, good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you all. Can we begin with a game of Beat the Intro? Name the artist and song, or indeed, please do complete the lyrics. Okay, here we go. You may be an ambassador to England or France. You may like to gamble. You might like to dance. You might be the heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls. But you're going to have to serve somebody. Thank you, Penny. We have at least one Bob Dylan fan in the house. Well, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. So said the prophet Bob Dylan. Today, as we continue our sermon series, Grow, learning the unforced rhythms of grace, we are thinking about serving. And we really wanted to make a big deal out of serving, as this is so important for where we're at as a church in this season. And that's why we've called today Serving Sunday, because my hope is that people are going to be challenged and inspired to serve specifically on Sundays here at St. Peter's, potentially in new ways. So as we begin, let me say some thank yous. First of all, can I thank everyone in this church who has served on any team in any way, shape or form. I hope that is as broad and as inclusive as possible, so no one will be offended when I begin an actual list. But today we are focusing our attention on serving on Sundays in particular. So I just want to thank every team that contributes to making Sundays what they are. So I want to thank the welcome team. If you're on welcome team, thank you. Newcomers will often decide before they've taken their seat and before the service has begun whether they'll ever come back again. That's how important welcome is. Huge thank you to the hospitality team, because coffee is key to church growth. Key thank you to the live stream team who work really hard so that we can deliver this service to people watching online. Huge thank you to the sound team. You do so much to make what we do great, and we've been bedding in a new sound desk, which is not without its challenges. So thank you to the sound team for your grace and your patience. Thank you to the visuals team for what you do on Sundays. Thank you to the preachers. Preparing a good sermon is a very labour-intensive exercise. So thank you to all our preachers who do a wonderful job. Service leaders and Bible readers, service leaders, you play a crucial role in helping to create a warm and relaxed environment for us all to worship God together. Thank you to the prayer ministry team. We're really excited that we can kind of kickstart prayer ministry again, which obviously was quite difficult to deliver in lockdown and in online services. Thank you to the kids and youth team, many of whom will be serving out there in groups already. It's so exciting to see what's going on with kids and youth at the moment. We're regularly getting more than 20 children and more than 20 youth. That is a significant ministry in its own right. So I just want to say, if you serve on Sundays in any way, can you please stand up so that we can see who you are? If you serve on any team whatsoever, and if I've missed you out, consider yourself included. Please stand now. And let's just show our appreciation to these wonderful people. Just want to say thank you to those who serve on Sunday mornings. And I know lots of you, thank you, feel free to sit down. I know lots of you will serve in other ways as well. Serving is essential for two things. Some of you may remember in my vision talk that was online, this is like last year, I stood under an umbrella and I said everything we do as a church will fall under the umbrella of two things. Now, I can almost guarantee you'll have all forgotten what those two things are, so I will remind you rather than creating an awkward moment. Those two things are discipleship and mission. So everything we want to do as a church should be serving one of those two aims, discipleship and mission. Everything we do should fall under the umbrella of those two things. And I want to say serving is absolutely vital to your personal discipleship and our corporate shared mission. In other words, you are not going to grow into the disciple Jesus is calling you to be if you don't serve as the Lord leads you to. And we, as a church, are not going to become the church God is calling us to be if collectively, that means each one of us, if collectively we don't serve God together as he calls us to. Does that make sense? Wonderful. 3 essentials for every member of St. Peter's, and indeed any local church. If you call yourself a member of St. Peter's, at least 3 things I would love you all to be doing. First of all, praying for the vision of St. Peter's. Because for us to do all the things God is calling us to do, we need a move of God. We need a move of the Holy Spirit. Things aren't going to happen here through clever strategies or good ideas. We need the Spirit to be at work, so we need to be praying. We need to be giving towards the vision of St. Peter's. Ministry costs, and we're doing some really exciting ministry that I hope you can all see. And thirdly, we need to all be serving under the vision of St. Peter's. The task, the mission God has called this church to, requires all hands on deck. No time or space for passengers. We all need to be praying for the vision, giving towards the vision, and serving under the vision. And just to be clear, that's not like a multiple choice where you can tick the one that you're willing to do. The idea is we're doing all 3 of those things all the time. With all that in mind, I'd love to welcome Alison, who's going to come and bring us our Bible reading. And for me, this passage that Alison's going to read is such a powerful passage. It's Jesus at the Last Supper, and this is what I often think about when I think about serving God and when perhaps I'm struggling with the motivation and desire to serve.
The reading is from John chapter 13, verses 1 to 17. Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you so much, Alison. So as we think about serving, I really want to answer just two questions, and then Jerry's going to help us think about how we can serve here at St. Peter's. So question one, why don't people serve on Sundays? And these are my top 5 reasons people don't serve at church as I come across them. 5 big buts, if you like. 5 big buts you might have as we think about serving. Big butt number 1, 1T. Big butt number 1. But I don't have the time. How many of you think that even as we begin to think about serving? But I don't have the time. Many of you are probably right. You don't have the time to serve. Your life is so rammed doing all sorts of things, lots of very important and noble activities, and other things that may be crazy and draw you away from the things of God. I have to say, I very rarely ask someone to do anything if I think they have time to. Good people are normally busy people. At every stage of life, you will probably feel too busy to serve. Youth are too busy doing homework, and by homework, I mean playing Minecraft. Young adults are too busy working, and by working, I mean binge watching Netflix and Instagram. Parents are too busy looking after children. And before I go any further, young mums, you are the exception to the rule. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Plough on. Keep going. Workers are too busy climbing their career ladder. And retirees, and we may have 1 or 2 of those in the room today, retirees, this is the phrase I hear so often, I'm more busy than I've ever been. Yeah, that's what I hear all the time from retirees. I'm more busy than I've ever been. Honestly, serving is like tithing or having kids. If you wait until you're ready to do it, you'll never do it. And this really is the whole point of the spiritual disciplines. Spiritual disciplines are the answer to the question, how can we order our lives with God at the center so we can live life to the full as Jesus intended? Lives that are unhurried and anxious-free. That's what we want, isn't it? To be unhurried and anxious-free. John Mark Comer wrote a great book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which was phenomenally popular amongst millennial Christians because they love being told to rest. But it's a great book on avoiding the anxiety of hurry. Dallas Willard, who's one of my favorite authors, once described hurry as the great spiritual enemy of our day. Isn't that so profound? The enemy, Satan, who we believe exists, the enemy doesn't need to get you to hate Jesus. The enemy just needs you to be too busy to do anything with or for Jesus. Okay, big but number 2. But don't we have a vicar and pay a staff team to do ministry so we don't have to? Isn't that what we give our money to? So that the vicar and the staff team run about and do the stuff? Short answer, no. We're blessed with a great team who work very hard for this church. But let me be very clear, as members of this church, you don't pay a staff team to deliver a product you are free to consume at your leisure. Serving in church is the vaccine for one of the greatest viruses facing the Western church, consumer culture. Lockdown has been terrible for this because it has promoted more than ever a consumer culture in church. Because it's really easy to sit at home online in your underwear and critique an online service. That's really easy. It's not very compelling, but it's easy. Ministry is not a spectator sport. Ministry is the shared work of the whole body of Christ. It's the shared work of the whole body. As a staff team, we exist to equip the saints for the work of ministry. We are here to equip and enable the whole body to play its part in fulfilling the vision. Bottom line, think of it like this. The staff team here exists to serve God by serving you, so together we can all serve God. And I think that just about makes sense. Okay, big but number 3. But I don't want to be on a rota for the rest of my life. But I don't want to be on a rota for the rest of my life. I have to be honest with you, I agree. Neither do I. I have no interest in signing up to being on a rota for the rest of my life. This is so often a big fear in church, isn't it? That if I sign up to this rota, I only have 2 possible means of escape. Death or relocation, right? And even then you think if we relocate, we'll start calling you up and telling you need to move back. Honestly, that's not the way it's meant to be. You don't need to sign up for life. I promise you, you can try before you buy, but please do try serving in some way. Does that sound fair? Yeah. Okay, big but number 4. But surely not me, Lord. I am unworthy and woefully inadequate for the task. That's how I feel most days. It reminds me of Exodus chapter 3. God calling Moses to liberate his people. And God speaks to Moses out of the burning bush. The Lord said out of the burning bush, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And God says this to Moses, so now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. And how does Moses respond to the very voice of God speaking out of a burning bush? But Moses said to God, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? In other words, surely not me, Lord. Surely you can find someone more gifted, more competent, more experienced for the task. We so often disqualify ourselves from ministry, don't we? Surely not I, Lord. Surely God has someone else more capable or more gifted or more suited to the task. And I want to encourage us today, don't let false humility prevent you from serving. It's not about how good or gifted or competent you are. It's about what God can do through you. And if God can liberate the people of Israel from slavery in Egypt through little old Moses, he can even use me and you to serve in the church. Okay, big but number 5. But the church isn't doing exactly what I think it should be doing, exactly how I think it should be doing it. Heaven forbid anyone would think like that. In other words, there isn't the perfect opportunity to serve that meets all my needs. And this is why we value humble service. Can I suggest it requires no humility at all to do exactly what you want to do, exactly how you want to do it. That's kind of, that's how my kids live. They're not necessarily always modeling humble service. To serve humbly means choosing to serve the vision of the church rather than to do my thing my way. That makes sense? Okay. That being said, second question I want to spend a few minutes thinking about is why should we serve? I want to be a little bit more positive now. What are the reasons we should serve in church? Okay, reason to serve number 1, God created us to serve. Creation account, there are 2 creation accounts. In the first creation account in Genesis 1:27, we read this. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And then in the second creation account, in Genesis 2, verse 15, we read this. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Notice the original task of humble service God calls humanity to was to rule over and care for creation. I wonder how that's going. Look at the news if you're interested. Isn't it so fascinating that as we look at what's going on in the world, COP26, the most influential scientific minds and global political leaders are catching up with Genesis 1. Isn't that interesting? Verse 18 of Genesis 2, speaking of the creation of Eve, the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Isn't it interesting that Adam needed a helper, not just a companion? And you only need a helper if there's a task or if there's work for you to do, not if you're just there to enjoy a beautiful garden. It's one of the reasons serving is so satisfying, because it's what we were created to do, to live in response to the love of God and to live a life of service. Okay, reason to serve number 2. Post-creation and fall, God has a mission to redeem and renew creation and chooses to fulfill his purposes through a people who are willing to serve. So beyond the initial act of creation, this is how God works in the world, through faithful people who serve him in sacrificial and humble obedience. So God partners, and I like this word partners, God partners with ordinary, broken, sinful, flawed, and limited people like me, and I might not be alone in this room, to accomplish his purposes in his world. This is the story of the whole Bible. In the Hebrew Bible, when God wanted someone to rule over creation as his vice-regents, he partnered with Adam and Eve. When God wanted to restart human civilization after wickedness overwhelmed the earth, he partnered with Noah. When God wanted to elect a chosen people through whom the nations would be blessed, he partnered with Abraham. When God wanted to liberate his people from slavery in Egypt, he partnered with Moses. When God wanted to lead his people into the land he had promised them, he partnered with Joshua. When God wanted to anoint a king who was a man after his own heart, he partnered with David. When God wanted his people to return to Jerusalem after a generation in exile, he partnered with Nehemiah. And then in the New Testament, and ultimately, when God wanted to fulfill his covenant promises to Israel and make it possible for the nations, that's you and me, to be saved, he partnered with the fully human Jesus. When God wanted a rock upon which he would build his church, he partnered with Peter. When God wanted an apostolic church planter to take the gospel to the furthest corners of the Roman Empire, he partnered with Paul. And in the post-biblical era, which is our time, when God wanted the gospel to be embedded and embodied in communities throughout the world, he partnered with ordinary local churches like little old St. Peter's Loudwater. Here's the thing, God works in the world through ordinary people who are willing to humble themselves and serve a big God with a big mission. That's what you're being invited to, is you serve God through serving at church. Okay, reason to serve number 3. God in Christ has modelled humble service. John 13, the Last Supper, I think this is so profound. And this is what John 13 verse 2 says. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Isn't that so profound? That Jesus, on the last night before his crucifixion, at his final meal, he chooses to take off his outer garment and wash his disciples' feet. For me, that is the ultimate display of humble service. That's what I think about when I can't be bothered to serve God. I think about John 13. Isn't that so profound? If I was Jesus, which thankfully I'm not, I would gather the disciples around me for my final meal. I'd say, guys, I'm feeling quite stressed out, actually. I've got a tough day at work coming up tomorrow. I'd really love it if you just sit around me and maybe big me up, build up my confidence, tell me how great I am. You know I'm kind of God as well, so why don't you worship me, get the guitars out, sing some songs to me, really build me up and fill me up. That's not what Jesus does at the Last Supper. He takes off his outer garment. He washes his disciples' feet in an act of extraordinary humility. I want to suggest to us that if Jesus can find time to model humble service on the night before his crucifixion, I can't help but think we might be able to find time every now and then to serve him at church. That sounds kind of fair to me. Sorry if I'm offending anyone, by the way. Okay, reason to serve number 4. God in Christ commands us to serve one another. John 13:13. When Jesus had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Jesus says, "Do you understand what I have done for you?" He asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am." And then this is what Jesus says. "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." Humble service, serving one another in the context of community, is actually one of Jesus' clearest commands to us. It's a command to serve one another. That might look like being involved in hospitality, or being on the kids and youth team, or whatever it might be for you. Let me just perhaps finish with this. God has uniquely shaped us to serve. I often think about us in terms of how we're wired by God to serve. Shape, spiritual gifts, heart, abilities, personality, and experience. SHAPE. You are uniquely shaped by God to serve him. You bring something to the party here at St. Peter's that no one else does. Please don't rob this church of your unique gifting and your unique heart to serve. You are so welcome to bring everything that you are and who God's created you to be into service here at St. Peter's. And just finally, I really believe that God will form us into his family as we serve. So many people, I hear about this kind of more often than anything perhaps, so many people throughout lockdown have felt disconnected. Right, we probably all have at some point, because watching services online sat at home just isn't the same. We've all felt disconnected socially, and I really think one of the best ways for us to build our community and rebuild our community, to rebuild our relationships and indeed form new relationships, is to serve God together in teams. It's one of the best ways to make friends. If you've been around church for very long and you've served in different ways, you'll know that as you serve God on teams, it's a great way to make friends. So I want to invite us, especially in the context of Sunday mornings, to join a team and to allow God to form us into the community he's calling us to be as we serve him together. So hopefully I've said a little bit now about why we should serve God. And I just want us to get really practical now. And so I'm going to welcome Jerry to come up, and she's going to talk to us more about how we can serve on Sundays. So I'm going to hand over to Jerry. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Danny, and good morning, everyone. Just to start, I'd let you know that the slides that I follow up with today are available on our website, and I do have a few paper copies on the welcome stand at the back. So just starting with my talk, really, to remind you really about our vision, that at St. Peter's we exist to demonstrate the love of Jesus by being a source of spiritual hope, practical help, and authentic community. And as the weeks have gone on, we have seen more and more examples of our vision in action. And these examples have come from various different pillars of our vision. And you may remember that we have 5 of them, and there'll be opportunities for us to talk about the details that underpin some of these different strategic ministry priorities on other occasions, but today we're talking to you about worshipping communities because that's the service on Sunday. And actually, this strategic ministry priority, perhaps more so than some of the other ones, actually allows us to demonstrate all of our vision's values, which, as you know, is about loving family, expectant prayer, generous giving, humble service, courageous mission, and passionate worship. And as a church, we're still evolving at the moment. You might have noticed just how frequently that the coffee tables move around this building each week. We're still trialling things. We're trying to get things right. We really want our Sunday services to be absolutely engaging for you. We are a multi-generational church. We want our services to be excellent, to help you grow in your faith, and providing worshipping services that are relaxed and engaging. But this doesn't happen by accident. A great deal of planning and thought has to go into it. And actually, we have 6 stages that we follow when we're putting our services together. The first stage being the planning stage. Then we have to think about making sure that our environment is right to welcome you. The welcome process that we go through, extending you hospitality, and offering engaging service content, and then offering the right content in groups for our kids and youth. Now, currently we have 2 services. We have the Young at Heart service, which has been wonderful to see in recent months. And then we have our Sunday morning service, but in time we hope to be able to offer you more services as well. So I mentioned we've got 6 stages. Within those 6 stages there are an awful lot of steps that we have to follow. And don't worry, this text is tiny, so I'm going to take you through each of the stages one by one, or you can look afterwards on the website or the paper copies at the back. But if I start by looking at the Sunday service stage 1, planning our services, you might actually see there, although I can see it is a little bit tiny, we've got some circles underneath, and there are some numbers in those circles, and that denotes the number of people that are involved in each of these stages. If it's a black circle, it means it's a weekly active service, and if it's a white circle, then it's a regular active service, but it's an ad hoc one. So our team leaders have to plan this service, and 6 leaders are involved each week in putting that together. Then we've got another 4 people that manage the rotas. For stage 2, the Sunday service, preparing our church building, making sure we're warm and comfortable. 1 person each week needs to clean, or at least 1 person does. Another needs to set the chairs out. On some occasions, we might not have had things happening in the week, which could mean that the chairs are the same from one Sunday to another, but sometimes we do need people to reset those up. Making sure that somebody comes in early to open up the church, make sure that all the fire exits are safely actionable, and then close up for our security as well at the end of the service. We have beautiful decorations here. Barbara DeSeck's team does a great job decorating, and you'll just see how wonderful it looks at Christmas and Easter. There are 4 people involved in that team. And then we also have facilities management. This is really important, obviously. It's headed up by Andy. He does an amazing job. We need to make sure that the church is well kept and repaired. And from a health and safety point of view, it's safe for us to come in and enjoy the building as well. Stage 3, the welcome process. Danny has just reiterated how important it is for us to feel welcome when we come here, particularly for newcomers, because their experience will dictate whether they come back or not. We really want it to feel like you are coming home to visit church family. So we need to have the right sort of environment which helps relationships being built. So we have 3 people for the pre-service welcome. And then at the end of the service, one of those needs to hopefully try and reconnect with the newcomers and start introducing them to fellow members of our church family so that relationships can start being built. And you'll also know that we have connect cards that are available. So if newcomers do want to really induct themselves into our church life, then they can highlight how they want to get involved. and somebody will be connecting them in the weeks ahead just to try and offer them the right opportunity for them to settle in properly. Stage 4, extending hospitality. 2 of you coming in to set up the refreshments at 8:30, or what can be quite nice is clearing the refreshments, because sometimes there are brownies and millionaire shortbread left at the end of service, and you don't have to be polite, you can stuff your face with whatever's left. So that's another one. And then very critically for stage 5, offering an engaging service. Now, Danny's already spoken to you about the amount of time that's involved with some of these stages. Service leading, we need a service leader. We need 7 involved for worship from a production point of view and from a band point of view. Another Bible reader, preaching, an awful lot gets involved with there, and sometimes they're planning weeks in advance for this one. Communion servers and stewards, and prayer ministry as well. And then finally, the final stage is offering age-specific content for kids and youth. So we need 2 people to register, and then also some people who are very brave, who can do the actions or don't mind doing the actions at the front of church for all-age worship. And then those that want to get involved with the different individual age groups, the Ark, Little Lions, All Stars, and Youth. Now, I know that these numbers up here are tiny, and I've mentioned them, but any guesses from you as to how many acts of service this represents on a weekly basis? Any shout-outs? Okay, I'm just going to go for it. 60, did some say 60? 100? Oh, okay. Well, that's good that you're thinking that there is a lot involved. It's actually 50. So with... Pardon?
Mathematically, that means 50 times 49 times...
I should have you up here, Anne, for me, leading it. Okay. Okay, all right, forgive me. Forgive me. You can give me a lesson afterwards, Anne. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so 50 acts of service that is ministered by 31 of you supporting us each week. So staff team, as Danny has mentioned, we're here to support you. And if you don't recognise the emoji with the halo on it, I've decided to elevate Danny to saint status here, because I think he's doing a pretty stupendous job leading us here at St. Peter's. So, next slide, please. Okay. Okay, so our question to you is, can you share in the delivery of this part of our vision? We do have other areas that you can get involved with, but just thinking about worshipping communities today, we've got a variety of roles for you to get involved with, some from the very basic, humble service offerings that you can provide to some that are perhaps a little bit more challenging. Training and guidance will always be provided, and as Danny says, this is not a lifelong commitment that you're having to sign up to. You can try different roles and you can swap out of them. Just give something a go if you can. And this is a very true point that Danny has said. This is actually an opportunity for you to make friends while serving on a team, and it can be fun. So we would encourage you to find out more at our volunteer fair, which is starting shortly. We have a number of different tables that you can come and talk to different leaders, so that you can perhaps just speak to the people of the areas that you're most interested in. I'll put that slide up again in a few minutes, but just to let you know, if you're on to the next slide, please, Anna. Our volunteer fair is going to start in 10 minutes. We would absolutely love you to stay, but recognise that some of you may have things to go and get on with in your day, and if that's the case, God bless you, we will see you next week. But if not, please go and enjoy a tea, coffee, quick catch up with your friends, and then come and visit us at the table of your interest. So thank you.